Welcome to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.
Why have the southwestern United States and Mexico always been such hotbeds of UFO activity? What's been going on there lately? Who's seeing it? And the constant question on this show, what does it mean? Hello there, everybody, and welcome to the 95th broadcast of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. I'm Paul, and I'm sorry to say that Ben is a little under the weather this morning. He kind of woke up coughing and stuff. I told him to stay home and take it easy. So I'm flying solo today, but usually he's, of course, my co-host and partner and my son in the paranormal, of course. And I'm a partner in the paranormal, and a great one he is, too. Anyway, it's question time. Sherry Rodriguez from Phoenix, Arizona, ironically, won last week's contest, and the question was, in the 18th and 19th centuries in New England, deaths from what disease were often attributed to vampires? The answer, tuberculosis, or as it was called then, consumption. This week's question is, what ultra-famous UFO incident has its 30th anniversary in 2010? I'll repeat that. What ultra-famous UFO incident has its 30th anniversary in 2010? If you can deal with that, call us locally, 401-766-1240, or from anywhere in the U.S. at 800-449-1240. Email address, eno, at onworldwide.com. If I don't announce a winner during the show and you still think you have the answer, drop a line to Ben during the week at ben@behindtheparanormal.com. And the winner gets a copy of my latest book, Turning Home, God, Ghosts, and Human Destiny. And so that brings us to our guest. Kyle Dayton has been described as one of the up-and-coming stars in paranormal television. She was born in California, something of a Navy kid. I won't say Navy brat, she's too nice for that. Her late father was in the U.S. Marine Corps, and her mother served in the Naval Reserve. Her dad, interestingly enough, had been a guard at the top-secret research facility at Groom Lake, Nevada, otherwise known as Area 51. When Kyle was a year old, her family moved to Indiana, where she had numerous ghostly encounters and paranormal experiences, and saw her first UFO. Over the years, the family relocated a number of times, but Kyle's paranormal experiences continued. Elsewhere in life, Kyle is a recognized expert and author on the subject of botany, and specializes in the Rose family. She is the former co-host of the cable access television show The Cutting Edge, and is the current host of Cosmic Chronicles, which is taped in Tucson, Arizona, and shown on several access stations across the country. Ben and I are very proud to have Kyle as one of the new field reporters for our show, and we're certainly pleased to have her with us today. Her website is www.ufoshows.com/cosmic.htm. That's on our website, behindtheparanormal.com. You can find links to that. Okay, so as I say, call in and join our discussion today. The same numbers, 401-766-1240 in the local area, 800-449-1240 nationally. And Kyle Dayton, welcome back to Behind the Paranormal.
Hi, Paul, and thank you so much for that warm introduction and for inviting me back to the show. And I just wanted to mention, too, when I appreciate the compliment on expert, but, when you start studying any subject in depth, you realize how much you don't know about it. So
that's what we're always, that's what we're always saying. I mean, I think not only in the paranormal field, but in the field of human intelligence in general, the more you realize you don't know, I think the more intelligent you are, in a sense. So anyway, okay, well, tell us, what's the latest UFO news from the Southwest?
Well, what I was basically going to do, since it was at the beginning of the year, at the end of the year, and I got to thinking about it, and I decided to focus my talk today and the information on Arizona. I wanted to do a wrap-up from the beginning of the year to the present, and I thought, if you're trying to get a bigger picture, an idea of the bigger picture, then sometimes you focus on a certain area, and then you can see a pattern developing, and then sometimes it can explain the bigger picture.
Sure.
And I noticed that from my research, most of the reports coming in from the Southwest, which is Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Nevada, Utah, and Colorado, it seems that most of the reported sightings are from Arizona and Texas in particular. And I had researched the databases from the Mutual UFO Network Online, otherwise known as MUFON, also the National UFO Reporting Center, and there's another one, too, that was a minor one. I don't know if I have any information from them today. It was UFOcasebook.com that some people report to, but I wanted to focus my talk today on, we're going to be mentioning incidents that involve shiny silver spheres. Other incidents involve flying triangles. One particular connection of incidents that happened over more of a month's time that have to do with green balls of light and military interception, possibly.
Green balls of light?
Green balls of light.
Huh,
and
okay.
I had seen something like that here in Arizona City, and my memory wasn't jogged until I started doing the research. We also have seen cigar-shaped objects here, flying triangles that I may mention today, and also there a lot of the incidents that I'm focusing on include photos, videos, multiple witnesses, or all three. So let me see, where shall I start?
Go for it.
Okay. Let me see. I have an interesting sighting that happened in Tucson, which is, the south, I guess you could say, toward the southeast part of Phoenix. It's southeast of Phoenix towards southern Arizona. In Tucson at 4:10 p.m. on January 16th, and this report is from the National UFO Reporting Center, otherwise known here on as New Fork. It states that for 30 minutes, a witness observed in the distance next to a group of small mountains a small white dot in the sky making circles while a red dot orbited it from left to right and around it. The white dot then started to move in small counterclockwise circles, then stopped, then repeated the movement about 3 to 4 times. Conditions were clear. The reason I mention that is that we'll tie into something else. We have another sighting on the same day in Yuma, which is basically on the western border of Arizona. And on 6:25 p.m., New Fork reports that the witness saw a massive bright white light floating across the sky, heading north from a southward direction. One of the witnesses said they'd seen this object before or something very similar to it many times, and told the other 2 witnesses, who were his parents, that as soon as this object reached the outskirts of Yuma, it would then zoom away at a supersonic speed, which it did. And his father states that this is what gave his sighting credibility, because the kid knew what was going to happen. As the speed increased, the light of the object dimmed. While it was floating across the skies of Yuma, it was not traveling at supersonic speed, however. Otherwise, the witness said that this event looked very similar to how space shuttles travel across the sky at night, but doesn't believe that space shuttles travel from south to north. The witness did videotape this, which also captured the image of a plane believed to be a jumbo commercial airliner flying past, heading toward California. And this next report has to do with dancing stars, January 25th.
Can I point one thing out, Kyle?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
Yuma is the site of a major Air Force base, I believe, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, just to make a note of that. But I'm sorry, continue, please.
No, that's okay. There could be experimentation, something or what have you, yes.
Yeah.
And a very famous haunted jail is also in Yuma, too. I'd love to go visit.
I was there one time doing a book signing, but I didn't have time to look into that. But.
Oh, great. Well, good excuse to go back and visit.
Yeah.
Research.
Absolutely.
Yes, and for up in the skies over Mesa, which is in the I don't know if you call it metropolitan area near Phoenix. It's slightly southwest of Phoenix on January 25th at, the report says 8:45, but I believe they meant 8:45 p.m. It states that far up in the skies over Mesa, for 40 minutes, 3 witnesses watched about 5 hovering objects, quote, dancing in all directions, such as up and down, circling, and figure eights. The objects were more yellow-tinted than the actual stars, and some were brighter than the stars, while others were less so. Most of the time, a second star, slightly over, would be dancing with the other, and when a plane would fly by, the object would stop moving, almost like it was pretending to be a star. Although the original report gave the time as 8:45, I think it was 8:45 p.m. instead of a.m. because they wrote about the night sky. We have a sighting of a cigar-shaped object here on January 28th at around 5 p.m. in Rio Rico, which is southern Arizona west of Fort Huachuca Army Base. but very near it, which is also the headquarters for Army intelligence. And we have here, yes, it might be connected, I believe.
Possible.
And this report says that for 2 minutes on January 28th, witness watched from behind their house a cigar-shaped object gliding across the mountains. They describe the object as wingless and silent, with the sun glaring off of it and surrounded by a type of smoky or grayish clouds that looked more like an aura or a shield type of mist. Witness stated that the object had nothing physically in common with any aircraft they've seen there, and that all the planes that fly through that location make a noise because of the mountain's echo.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. My next sighting comes from Gila Bend, which is more in my neck of the woods, from Arizona City. This is part of the area unofficially known as the Arizona Triangle or UFO Triangle.
Okay.
It encompasses the area between Gila Bend, Casa Grande, and Zacatón. And in Gila Bend, approximately February 5th at 2:15 p.m., the witnesses were traveling on Interstate 8 just east of Gila Bend when they saw...
I know it well.
Yes, nice area, and nice area to go sky watching. They were traveling east of Gila Bend when they saw in the sky a black egg-shaped object just setting over the mountain. Object was motionless and had no lights. They watched it for 15 minutes, then stopped to take a photograph when it then shot behind the mountain. So no photo was taken. The witnesses then waited for about 5 more minutes before the object went up and out of sight. And let me see here. I'm going to report here a large round object that stayed in the same place in the sky for at least 6 hours in Marana, which is northwest Tucson. This sighting was seen with 2 smaller white objects and 6 smaller reddish objects. There's a white object and a red object again, like the white dot and red dot objects I mentioned previously. The shape of the large object, the large white object, would change from round to horizontal oval, and it had a light that would vary in color from white to brilliant white. On the bottom of this object appeared to be red, blue, and green lights. Several times the smaller reddish objects would circle around, and then they would go back to the large object, described by witnesses as the main craft or light. At least twice they saw a reddish light go from the object to the ground. They also saw one of the smaller white objects apparently land and then a few minutes later take off. Other times they saw light that went from the smaller red objects back to the large white object.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the witnesses panicked when a white light from the object came towards them. The other witness says they're sure that they saw the same object southeast of that location 2 weeks before. And let me see, and we have on March, I'm going to skip here to March of 2009. Over a period of days, a variety of objects were seen by this witness who lives in the San Francisco Bay Area, but since early March of 2009, they had been monitoring the skies over Phoenix using the Arizona Department of Air Quality webcams, or the ADEQ webcams.
Okay.
And
how much of the sky does that cover?
I believe it covers part of downtown Phoenix, and it's a wide angle.
Okay.
And he says they also recommend, this person also recommends the website webcamufo.com, from which one can download zoomable high-resolution pictures from the Phoenix webcams.
Okay.
The witness states that starting in the early evening hours, in just a few short days of watching these cams, they've been able to capture more than 24 unusual objects in the air over Phoenix.
Wow.
Yes, the witness has dozens of photos with original high-resolution, 5.6 megabyte images.
Okay.
Yes, and they request if anyone would like more information or to see the photos, to please contact them through MUFON.
Okay, excellent. Speaking of MUFON, we have Christine Dickey on the phone, and Christine is a friend of yours, of course.
Oh, yes, great.
Yeah, and she's the state director, Arizona state director of the Mutual UFO Network. And we have other calls coming in. Our producer's kind of going a little bit crazy. We'll get Christine on the air as soon as we can. Brittany's got her hands full today here, and Ben isn't here. He's under the weather, so we're kind of winging it.
Yeah.
Okay. I think here we go. We'll get Christine. Can we get Christine on the air? All right. Thanks. Hi, Christine.
Yes, hello.
Hello. Well, welcome to Behind the Paranormal. You got me, and you got Kyle Dayton here as well. So what do you got for us today?
Well, I just wanted to call in and let everybody know that Tucson, we lost George Parks. He retired as state director, and I've been getting a lot of calls from Tucson residents asking me to please keep the meetings going down there. So we're doing our best to round up speakers, and I have quite a lineup this year. I have Travis Walton coming in next month on the 16th at the Unity Church.
Yep, Travis Walton being a very famous abductee.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and we have Joe Farrell, who's does a lot of lectures at the UFO conferences around the states, and he's written a lot of books. My favorite, of course, is on the Nazi Bellcraft. And we have George Knapp coming. We haven't got a firm date for him yet. Bob Dean will be coming in April. We're going to be trying to get Rebecca Hardcastle, Paula Harris, Dr. Carol Rosen from the Disclosure Project.
All our old guests and upcoming guests, yeah.
Yeah, so we have a pretty good lineup coming.
Excellent. Well, we have a lot. Actually, this show started out, we're Rhode Island based now, but we started out in Phoenix in June of '08, and so we still have a lot of listeners in Phoenix. So anybody down there, get to this conference and check it out. Anybody who's not, check it out online. Is there a website, Christine?
I don't have a website yet set up for myself. There is a website, phoenixmufon.com. And they can get a lot of information off of that website. And also, I believe there's a lot of information there about upcoming speakers in Phoenix. So we have speakers in Phoenix and in Tucson.
Excellent. Well, keep us posted, and we can always publicize it on our website, behindtheparanormal.com, and keep people informed on that. Okay?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Well, we'll talk to you again. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, back to Kyle Dayton, who was filling us in on all the UFO sightings of 2009 in particularly Arizona. So take it away, Kyle.
Well, thank you very much. And I also wanted to mention Phoenix MUFON is going to have Barbara Lamb as their guest.
Whoa,
yes, Barbara Lamb is. That was on January 16th.
January 16th.
Yes, and I hear a dial tone there. Is that?
Yeah.
Should I wait?
The one Kyle, we're going to keep.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, okay.
A little bit of technical difficulty. Anyway, continue, please.
Christine does a great job with MUFON. Her scores on her test when she was first taking the test to become an investigator in the beginning was something like 99%.
Wow.
Yeah, very sharp woman. I have here. I'm going to jump to March 27th near Fort Huachuca in Sierra Vista. And they saw it for 2 minutes. They saw a disc. A truck driver was driving from Sierra Vista northbound towards I-10 when he noticed two cars pulling off to the right. He did the same, and he saw a big saucer-shaped craft flying from east to west. Not sure how high it was, but it was a little lower than a jetliner would fly. He said it was metallic color and didn't really see any lights or flashing on it, but that was about the size of a quarter from what he could see. And as it was moving, it disappeared over the mountains and hills of South Tucson. And again, that is near a base called Fort Huachuca, the headquarters. We have on Gila Bend on March 30th. This report comes in and states that southwest of Phoenix and Gila Bend on March 30th, for 5 minutes, a single suspended sphere separates into multiple pulsing spheres and departs rapidly after warping back to one. And say that quick 10 times. This report is from New Fork. And they were trying to get the video, and they started videotaping it. And first their camera was on still, and then they couldn't get a clear picture because of the movement of the object. And so they switched their camera to video mode. The object then began to move drastically as if trying to avoid being captured on film. The object darts drastically in the video. It had the sphere was a bright orange red in color. He says he lowered the camera to grab another photo, and while switching over the camera, the object separated into multiple spheres, now white in color. The spheres were in two lines. The spheres from right to left glowed and pulsed out light with greater intensity one at a time. And they state that there's video footage of this, but the person isn't sure how to send video via internet, but would do so if anyone was interested in researching on that.
Okay.
There's a person in Mesa, Arizona on March 31st at 8 p.m. who reports they saw what they thought was an invisible helicopter. They looked up in the sky, could not see a helicopter, but they could hear helicopter noise.
Now that's interesting.
Yes,
yes.
Yeah. All they could see was a row of red lights and hear the loudness.
Because there have been reports in various areas, often connected with the so-called Men in Black phenomenon, that people have seen helicopters turn into UFOs and vice versa. At least that's according to some reports I've seen.
Well, that's interesting. And, also, too, speaking of Men in Black, I was laying in bed around 2 a.m. last night and letting my mind wander, and the thought of Men in Black came to my mind, and I got the thought that, they're technicians. This might sound kind of, I don't know if it's far-fetched, but if they could be like technicians or scientists that are responsible for implementing the technology, not unlike, young people, boys or students that go out and have let's say, a rocket building kit. The person either builds the rocket alone, or there's several that build it, and then they take it out on the playground or wherever they're going to be out, and they launch the rocket. They wait till it lands, then they go in and gather the materials either for reuse or what have you.
Yeah.
And so maybe this is what's happening with the so-called Men in Black, and which is why would give a reason why they show up so quickly after various sightings.
Anything's possible. But let me ask you this. You brought up the idea of technology here, and that much study has been done of seismic phenomena, geotechnic phenomena, that supposedly is theorized to create at times some of these lights, such as people are describing. Obviously, not the machines and the things with obvious mechanical characteristics. But what is your opinion of the so-called earthquake lights, things that are created seismically that could be mistaken for UFOs?
I think that's absolutely possible. I think there is an electrical interaction that have to do with the triggering of the earthquakes, or because the Earth is an electrical body.
Sure.
In so many ways. So I believe that it pays to do one's research so they wouldn't confuse earthquake lights with UFOs or flares or what have you.
Well, the problem with that is that when experiments have been done, I guess tension between rocks on a smaller scale in the lab has produced lights, but only for a second. They go out immediately. It's like static electricity of some kind.
Yes.
But the lights that are seen, what you're describing, are seen over mountains and things of this kind, or over the desert for lengthy periods. So that's an issue that would have to be addressed.
Yes. Well, so. I wonder if certain lights, certain frequency affect the energy and electricity around them in a certain way.
Another good question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think.
So I'm sorry. So proceed, please.
That's okay. All right. I'm going to jump to April to Beaver Dam. A teardrop-shaped, bright green diamond-shaped craft with red around it crashes somewhere by the gorge leading to St. George, Utah. Two people here. It says, my boyfriend and I were driving through the desert looking for a place to park and talk, and they saw
Park and talk, huh?
Yeah, I could talk. Okay. When all of a sudden they saw a diamond or tear-shaped thing going diagonally across the sky with a ring of red around it, and this was around 10:45 p.m. It then passed behind the mountains, and then they saw a huge explosion or a flash, and it was gone. And they believed that when they saw this huge flash of red and orange, that made them believe that whatever it was crashed into the earth. And on April 25th, at 11:03 p.m. in Bullhead City, which is across the Colorado River from Laughlin, Nevada, a meteorite falls in Mojave County, and a bright flash was observed over the horizon. The witness states that they believe it was a large shooting star, and the shooting star was very bright and lasted for approximately 3 seconds. It appeared to be falling in an west to east direction. The coloration of the falling star was a bright greenish color, and I'm going to refer back to the greenish color when I get to the next couple of stories here after this. The falling star appeared to pass behind the mountain range, and approximately 1 or 2 seconds later, witness observed the large flash that illuminated the eastern horizon behind the mountains for less than a second. The flash was similar to heat lightning, So they believe that this struck the ground. The sky was clear all day, and there was no lightning before this. Next.
Actually, let me stop you here, Kyle.
Sure.
We have to take a commercial break.
Okay.
We'll be right back on
All
Behind the Paranormal with Kyle Dayton and our Southwest UFO Report. Stay with us.
Tonight's segment of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Benjamin Eno. New River Press offers the best in unusual New Age books. Stand by the side of tonight's host, Paul Eno, as he battles poltergeists and helps suffering souls and families in the critically acclaimed books Faces at the Window and Footsteps in the Attic. Plunge deeper into the paranormal with Paul and learn about its influence on human history, its action in our daily lives, and its ultimate meaning for us in the best-selling Turning Home, God, Ghosts, and Human Destiny. Available now from New River Press, publishers of unusual books. Visit newriverpress.com, amazon.com, or your favorite bookstore. And set for release late this year in one of the most unusual books on the subject ever written, Paul gives us Dancing Past the Graveyard, What Ghosts Have to Say About God.
Okay, we're back on Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno, minus the Ben today because he's under the weather and I'm solo. Our guest is Kyle Dayton, one of our wonderful show reporters and also UFO expert, TV talk show host from Arizona, and she's filling us in on the goings-on with UFOs and UFO reports in the Southwest, especially Arizona. So again, take it away, Kyle.
Oh, thank you, Ben.
I'm Paul, remember?
Paul, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm not
I get your name
wrong.
Last time you were on, I got your name wrong, so we're
Ben, I'm so sorry. Ben is with you in spirit today. With
Indeed.
us in spirit. I'm sorry, Paul. It's embarrassing. Anyway, I have here. This is a very controversial story here. This one happened in May at around 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. And this involved a 12-year-old girl who was in Phoenix walking to the family mailbox, and in the sky, hovering over the neighborhood street, she sees a UFO. So she uses her cell phone camera, snaps 2 photos. One of the photos, she gets the object hovering, and then the second photo, the object is tilted and moving away. Her mother files a case report with MUFON. This is case number 19210. These photographs can be seen basically in many places on the Internet or Examiner.com, if anyone wants to check that out. Roger Marsh was the writer for Examiner.com who put the story together here. And when these photos were submitted, they were analyzed by a MUFON field investigator in New Jersey. And this is the person's own opinion. I will leave her name out of it. But this person stated that she thought these photos were a hoax because she said there is, quote, an overlay of blue sky, possibly wallpaper mural, overlaid photograph of man-made object, and she says does not conform to the rest of the image's background. And her conclusion was that the UFO is a tri-band wall sconce of indoor lighting. Well, this was not MUFON's official explanation for this. And the 12-year-old girl wrote in to comment, says, I promise this is not a hoax. And I didn't have the date and time was because she deleted the photo. She had sent it to her father beforehand, and then she was embarrassed and deleted it. That sounds like typical behavior for a 12-year-old girl, 12-year-old. And then her father writes in and says it's not a hoax. And the reason the pixelization is like that, he says, is because it's a cell phone camera and it doesn't have high resolution. It was a hot, sunny Phoenix summer day. You know, and Paul, I had went and looked at the photos myself. I had camera experience on and off for a couple decades now, and enlarging it, I see no evidence at all of hoaxing.
Well, I was going to ask, what steps someone like yourself takes to guard against, as much as you can, fakery in some of these photographs.
Well, I think you read as much as possible. Try to see as many photographs or videos as you can of actual hoaxes. And then you think to yourself, well, if someone's going to just say something is a hoax or not, then let's see them hoax it, and then come to me with the hoaxed photo.
Okay.
But then again, too, Roger Marsh writes to the girl and the father in response to them. He says, thank you for reporting your sighting. My apologies to you and to my readers if anyone thought that the investigator's opinion was an official MUFON opinion. The researcher is an excellent and valued investigator in New Jersey, and this was simply an opinion on the photo. It is not the official MUFON statement, which will come from the state director. And I would also add, too, that I wonder how a 12-year-old girl would hoax a photo from a cell phone camera.
Oh, you might be surprised.
That's
true,
but
the thing is, everybody's gullible today. I mean, and I learned my I had my photography training in the military in intelligence, and but I still don't trust myself. I have two other experts who look at photos of, in our case, mostly ghostly phenomena or alleged ghostly phenomena.
Oh, yes.
And it's anything can be fake. You have Photoshop. I could take the Starship Enterprise, put it in a photo over, Boston or New York or Philly, and somebody's going to believe it.
Yes, that's true.
So that's the thing. So, I'm a big advocate of being extremely careful with photography.
That's true. Well, with these photographs, too, when I enlarge them and look for any change in the pixelation,
Sure.
What it looks like is, how there's basically sometimes, I guess, like an energy shield or something around, or some energy emitting from the object.
Yeah.
This is what I saw, but I did not see anything superimposed.
Well, there's a little tip also. With each digital photograph, there's a little information file that comes with it. And I've never been able to access it in Photoshop. Maybe I just don't know how to do it. But things like Microsoft Image Manager, I believe it's called, or Picture Manager, that little file will come up. It'll tell you the kind of camera that was used to take the photo, when it was taken, not where it was taken, but it'll also tell you if the photo's been manipulated or not. So that's a handy little tool.
Oh, absolutely. I'd like to get one myself there.
Sorry to keep interrupting.
No, you're not at all. Thank you very much for the information. I'm going to jump here to June, since our time is going very quickly. On June 22nd, in Sholo, Arizona, which is eastern Arizona near Snowflake, which is where Travis Walton was reportedly abducted.
Snowflake, Arizona. Yeah.
Yes, Snowflake, Arizona.
Yeah.
On June 22nd at 8:40 p.m. For 4 seconds, a black disc with red and green non-flashing lights flew across the sky. Witness said they opened the door because it sounded like a helicopter. They looked and saw a circular disc-shaped object, and they were not blinking. The lights were not blinking, so they knew it was not a helicopter plane, in their opinion. We have, in July of 19th at 11:10 p.m., a newlywed couple was on their honeymoon at a resort in Sedona at 5,000-foot sea level. And they said as they were standing on their balcony, which overlooks the mountains, they saw a brilliant light above the mountain. They thought it was a helicopter, realized the altitude was too high, thought it was an airplane, but it had no blinking lights and stayed in the spot for too long. So they decided to take their video camera, tripod, and still camera and start shooting. There were some storm clouds and light pollution present. They videotaped and take pictures, and then when they enlarged the video for viewing, the object appeared as a rotating ball of light in the center of the screen. It looked like a gyrosphere in form and was made of mostly energy. And they state that because of cloud coverage, the UFO eventually fades out. 3 days later, they went to a gift shop in Sedona, and there they were told that the boss had seen the same object in the sky on the same night that they had been sighting. The picture that the boss had drawn of his sighting was the same object that this couple had captured on video. And that was from MUFON, but Newsfork reports that the couple was on a business trip, and that in the video the UFO looks like a plasma ball that's constantly rotating and changing colors, and that the object slowly disappeared as it backed away, according to them. And there is a MP4 video connected to the MUFON.com archive that people can check out on that. And this is right here. I'm on July 22nd.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me just do an ID here.
Sure.
You're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno on WOON 1240 AM in southeastern New England and onworldwide.com on the internet. And our call-in numbers today, I've been so fascinated by the conversation, I haven't given them in a while. 766-1240 locally, and in the United States in general, 800-449-1240. And we're back with Kyle Dayton, who's one of our wonderful reporters for our show, and is giving us a very complete and fascinating rundown of UFO sightings in the Arizona area in 2009. Take it away again, Kyle. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. This next sighting that I'm telling you about has several sightings connected to it, and it's involved with a greenish ball of light and an apparent men in black on July 22nd. And I believe this was in Tucson. A greenish ball of light behind the house was stationary and moving up and down and then back down to almost ground level. The son of the person who submitted this report, and this is the son saw off in the backyard of their home a very bright, almost turquoise-colored ball of light within a group of mesquite trees at the bottom of a hill. Their home rests on 2 acres, and more than half of the property is slope, and at the bottom is a flat area where there are many mesquite trees and a wash. As the son watched the object, it turned off, and then he saw something fly straight up pretty far in the sky and rather quickly. When it reached a certain altitude, it, quote, turned back on, and, quote, he saw the object come back down to where it was first seen, just above the ground, and then light up again. He noticed that it was pulsating. One thing he did notice that was, even though the light was very bright, it did not illuminate its surroundings. And the next day, when the son was heading back toward the place, which I guess his father had requested he go back to check it out, he was on his way, and then he heard footsteps echoing, and then he looked and saw 7 or 8 men apparently huddled around the place that he had seen this turquoise ball. The men were all dressed in black and had short, dark or black hair and were wearing gloves, as he could not see their hands. The son then decided against approaching any further. And
probably a good move.
Yes, I agree. And as the son went back to his home at the top of the hill, he saw the men climbing the opposite hill. Then from the top of the street came a black SUV with dark-tinted windows. The son said this vehicle was a Ford Excursion. All the men got in the SUV and left the location. This report was from MUFON.com. And a week later, on July 29th, at around 8:30 p.m., this has connected to with greenish lights coming from the bottom of the craft. A craft was seen flying over the home of a witness in Tucson at around 8:30 on July 29th. And it says 2 witnesses were outdoors watching possibly 30 different military craft in the skies headed east. And Davis-Monthan Air Force Base is in the Tucson area here. They saw at this time just 1 commercial jet heading west. All the other military vehicles were heading east. One witness was wondering why there were so many military aircraft there when one of the planes veered off course and headed toward the witness residence, which was an apartment. When the plane was right above the house, it ejected a luminous object which flared and disappeared. And for around 5 minutes after the planes had flown in, there weren't any other planes, but then, quote, out of nowhere, an apparently saucer-shaped craft flew in a straight line at a steady speed from the southwest toward the northeast, basically above where the witness was. The bottom of this object was illuminated orange from the city lights below. A few meters below this craft object, the witness saw greenish dancing lights, which did not reflect on the craft. The craft then continued northeast to beyond the northern mountain range at an apparent altitude of about 10,500 feet, which was the altitude necessary to clear the mountain range. The witnesses watched the craft fly above and past the mountains until it looked like a faint star in the distance. The military planes then returned. This time there were more of them, and they flew spread out across the boundaries of Tucson, which is 25 square miles according to the witness, and were continuing to circle in the air as the witness wrote this sighting report.
What a circus.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And then on August 5th, I believe this is Tucson again here, around 11:30 p.m., a witness was in their front yard when they looked toward the mountains on the west side of town and saw in the distance a ball of green light bouncing very rapidly from right. It was bouncing very rapidly from left to right at the same time, moving upward.
Bouncing?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was moving upward and away at an extremely high rate of speed. The witness said it was flying faster than anything, or moving faster than anything they'd ever seen. After just 1 or 2 seconds, several military helicopters came flying from the direction of Davis-Monthan Air Force Base towards the object in the distance. And witness reported they'd never seen anything move like that before, even though they'd lived next to Air Force bases and had seen all kinds of jets and other aircraft. That report was from MUFON. Going into August 19th, another ball of green light was seen over Tucson. This time, another witness reports a ball of green light moving up and down and from side to side, etc. It went behind a mountain, which is it's got a big A on the side of it. Then, afterwards, 2 helicopters apparently began chasing after it. The witness stated that they learned from an episode of UFO Hunters television show that at least one other person over the past few months had seen these green balls of light.
Yeah, Bill Burns is going to be a guest in about 2 weeks from UFO
Oh, that'll
Hunters.
be interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Jumping from August 19th to September 8th, in the same area, a green undulating object inside of a clear circle, and this was kind of interesting. This was kind of in-depth. The witness described the conditions as a gathering storm with cumulus clouds they looked up and saw at a high altitude a green undulating shape which made the clouds look like they were breathing. As the shape moved, the clouds did too. The shape moved from a storm cloud which had some lightning activity over to another cloud. When it moved again, this time to a cirrus cloud, the witness could more discernibly see the shape due to the transparency of that cloud. Then the shape began to move around many of the clouds until it was finally out in the open. Witness further stated that the green activity looked remarkably like that of a Tesla coil, and it was enclosed in a clear circular object which apparently was at least 1 mile in diameter.
A Tesla coil. Yeah,
yes,
that's a long story, but go ahead.
Yes, okay. Still at a high altitude, it now moved directly over the witness, who reported that they distinctly felt that this object knew that the witness could see it and was following its movements.
Very interesting.
Yes, and most of all when it was directly overhead. Then the shape slowly moved over to another set of cirrus clouds before completely zooming out of sight. Throughout the day, the electrical storm continued. The witness saw the shape object several more times. They also reported that the lightning was spectacular. The outer membrane of the object always remained clear, and the internal Tesla-looking activity was emerald green in color and looked remarkably like a flat, clear Tesla coil, and the object seemingly was drawn to the energy emitted by the lightning-producing clouds. All right?
Okay.
And jump to September 24th, 40 miles southeast of Tucson and Davis-Monthan Air Force Base again. The witness saw 3 spheres encircle each other and split to form a right triangle. There was a green sphere involved in this. The witness is a trained airline pilot, and they state that they were outside when they looked up and saw a bright light green sphere heading northwest toward them. Converging on this sphere were 2 additional spheres that were dimly lit with a slightly reddish silver tint. Witness also noticed that there were no other additional position lights on the sphere. Quote, I found it odd that there was no starboard green or portside red, and its white marker beacon was non-existent. This got my attention, end of quote. At first, the witness thought that an airliner heading for Phoenix Airport. The dimmer objects then converged upon the brightest green sphere and encircled it several times. Then its brightness greatly increased. Several times at a high rate of speed and in very close proximity to each other, the objects, quote, spinned as their rotation seemed to be accelerating. Then the bright green sphere remained stationary while the 2 dimmer spheres then accelerated to apparently preset points in which they formed a perfect right triangle in unison. And you know, Paul, I videotaped where I am in Arizona City something doing the same thing, forming a triangle in the sky, and I have that. And he goes on to say, or this witness goes on to say, that the bright green sphere then went dim once the other 2 spheres broke from it, while still maintaining its spacing and its triangular shape. This right triangle began to slowly rotate clockwise while the spheres remained stationary. The distance apart between the points that the spheres had stopped on was estimated at 40 miles. The estimated altitude of the objects was 60,000 feet, while the size of all the objects...
50,000 feet?
60,000 feet.
60,000 feet.
60, yes, 60.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
Twice as high as a commercial airliner usually would fly.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
While the size of all the objects at estimated altitude was approximately the visible size of an MD-80 airliner at an altitude of 30,000 feet. The witness says that once the sphere encircled the green and broke for the points, the neighborhood dogs, coyotes, and even the family dog began to howl, bark, and whine in a very strange way. Yes, for about 8 minutes, the coyotes and dogs continued to howl, and his dog was whining and nervous and wanted to go in.
It's like a movie.
Oh, man, tell you. After several minutes, the witness called out his son to look. The son immediately saw the triangle, which was still apparently in its perfect formation, and using the green sphere as a reference point, he noticed the slow clockwise rotation of the triangle. Witness went back inside the residence, and 10 minutes later came back outside to see that the triangle was gone. During the sighting, the witness could hear no audible sound, and there were no city noises in the neighborhood. But for some reason, every canine around was agitated about something, and the animals became quiet after the objects disappeared. The witness marveled at the speed and acceleration of the objects. Within just 4 seconds or so, they could travel 40 miles to stop on a dime at their set point. And this is when I remembered around springtime or so when I saw, there were 2 instances of seeing like green debris flying across the sky here in Arizona City. One, I was alone. I saw this west. And the other time, a friend and I were walking down the road, and we saw this for about 4 seconds, like green debris toward the west, like coming out of the sky and just shooting out, and then it faded out, I guess, or burned out. That was so I'm wondering if there's some kind of technology or testing being done here involving energy that turns green or is in a green state or something.
Yeah, it certainly sounds as well. I mean, there are certain forms of plasma that could look like that, and plasma. A lot of work in the paranormal brings you back to this stuff called plasma, which is essentially electrified air molecules. And when you see, ghostly phenomena, many photographs of these things often show plasma-like characteristics. So, and the same thing with UFOs, because we have ghost cases that lead into UFO cases, and the longer you spend on this stuff, the more you find. So, yeah, you may be right. I mean, there could be some technological connection or just plasma. I don't know. Yeah. Even Carl Sagan, the great novelist and popular scientist, spoke about the possibility of plasma-based life forms, which gets into the question of what orbs might be. The famous orbs you see in all these supposed spirit photographs and all this, and that sort of thing. So you're right. The speculation is wide open on these questions. So we are kind of coming down here. I'm sure you had a couple more.
I have one more.
Okay, please, go ahead.
And it happened in August, and it has video, and this is very controversial, and it has, if you look on YouTube, you'll see it entitled Airplane Abducted by UFO in Midair, caught on videotape.
Okay.
Okay, this is in Tucson at around 4:15 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. The airplane was approaching Davis-Monthan Air Force Base again. The UFO was first seen southwest of the base in a locked position. At first, the witnesses thought it was a balloon until its elevation dropped a few thousand feet in less than a second. One of the witnesses then ran outside, grabbed their digital camera, and ran back outside and began videotaping the object approaching the airplane from behind. The object was completely silent. There have been no reports in Tucson of a missing airplane, and Davis-Monthan did not report anything missing. The witness tried to take the video to the media, but every single affiliate rejected it due to lack of evidence. However, numerous news affiliates did confirm that on August 8th they received calls from various sources claiming to have seen a UFO, and that on a regular basis they do receive UFO-related calls. The news affiliates also said that there are many hoax videos. There was no reason to believe that this particular video was any different, and they refused to believe that Davis-Monthan would withhold information about a missing airplane. Now, I saw the video. Yeah, I went to see the video on YouTube myself, and it's kind of chilling, kind of scary, kind of fascinating. And take a look at it and see what you think yourself. It's pretty scary, whatever it is. It was just several people and their neighbors standing out videotaping, apparently, and
okay.
So.
Excellent. Well, boy, I wish we had 3 hours here.
Thank you, Paul.
There is a question. There are a couple of emails that came in for you that I wanted to ask. But before that, there is a question I wanted to get into this show, even if there's only a few minutes to answer it. Now, I understand that your dad reportedly guarded some of the alien bodies at Area 51. Is that correct?
Well, I think in one of the previous interviews I did, I may have been misquoted about that, because what my father thought, he was actually guarding. This was around 1957 in July, and he was in the Marine Corps, and he had guard status, and he was guarding what he thought, I don't know, hermetically sealed caskets, like the size of a children's casket. They were capsules, they were gray, and they had dials and gauges on them, and he thought, about the size of what a child's casket would be. But he said he never saw anything. When I would press him about it, he'd say, I didn't really see anything, this and that. But one night when he was on guard duty, it was either, I think, the Secretary of Defense or Secretary of the Navy came down. My mother would know this. She's still alive. My father passed in 2005. And this man had the official government car, the driver, and he went to my dad and tried to get back in to see what my father was guarding. My father wouldn't let him, and the guy tried to pull this routine on. Do you know who I am? You're going to be court-martialed, this and that. My father stood ground, said no. So the next morning when my father was called into his commanding officer's office, he thought, I'm going to be court-martialed. And apparently he says, no, Dayton, you did the right thing. The guy had no credentials. He had no right to be here, so you stood your ground.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so who knows what they could have been. I did receive information from a listener in Louisiana who had sent me a link to a page of what's called, it's a military photograph page, and it had to do with the different tests at Nevada. At the test site in Nevada, my father was part of what they call Operation Plumb Bob. And during Plumb Bob, there were 55-gallon drums with pigs in them that were being used as part of the testing. But, my father was an intelligent man. I'm sure he would know the difference between a 55-gallon drum and a gray capsule, metal capsule, because if it was a drum, he would have said, it's a drum.
Sure.
So, so that's just, I thought I would mention that for fairness sake.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, yeah. Well, let's, here's an email from Tracy Jarzenbeck in Stoneham, Massachusetts, and Tracy writes, how many UFOs do you think are government aircraft being tested, and how many are actually paranormal?
Ooh, I have no way of telling.
Yeah, that's,
yes,
but it's a common question.
Yes, that's a very good question, and if I knew that, I'd be a millionaire many times over.
Well, one thing, we find government craft reportedly following these things, and it makes you wonder: are they driving it? Are they monitoring it? What's really happening?
Yes,
so who knows?
I wonder. And it gets very sinister too. There's a book that was written a few years ago called UFO: The Arizona Connection, written by Nancy White, and it talks about that she believes that in the area of Baus and Salome, it's indicated by the sightings since 1993 that the area there is akin to Area 51, and that it is connected to the death of her brother Jim. His death was officially ruled as cause of death undetermined, but she believes he was murdered, and it was blatantly covered by falsified autopsy reports.
Oh, jeez.
Yes, it's very scary, and she wrote a book that has details about sightings there with documentation, she says, and includes photos of the crime scene and autopsy photos, which she claims were altered from the original photos. And she also writes about the apparent attempts against the lives of herself and her husband. She believes that her brother saw something that he wasn't supposed to see. If anyone is interested in any details on the book or any of Nancy's writings, just contact me via email at Kyle@BehindTheParanormal.com, or any questions, and I could get any information to you that possibly, that I can. And
Sure.
her case, this case, is considered classified by MUFON, but she lays out a lot of information publicly in her book.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know that when whenever we cover this subject in any depth, a lot of strange things start happening to us. And Ben and I and his mother agreed, that we're interested in the truth here. Certain things should be kept secret, but I get annoyed when my guests start getting leaned on by the government, and that's happened in two different cases with two different guests, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know. I'll go home and there'll be some strange van sitting outside our house. I don't know, but it's happened. And if it hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't believe it. But in any case, here's I don't know if we have any more time, but I'm going to throw this one out anyway. This is from Jody Bingham in San Diego, California, and Jody writes, Paul has mentioned the time when he sat down with Bud Hopkins, the famous UFO abduction expert, and looked at photos of alien abduction victims that looked just like poltergeist victims. Could some or all aliens be, what I call parasites, or traditionally demons or whatever? You go back in folklore and you get a lot of the same images. What say you on that?
Well, what came to mind there was the old the belief in the incubus and the succubus.
Yeah.
I mean, how many of those could have been so-called alien abductions or demonic contacts, or what kind of contact, what have you? So that's my first thought. I don't know what else to say on it at the moment, but I'll probably think of something decent to say after we hang up.
Well, we'll have you back many times. As I say, we're very proud to have you as one of our field reporters on the show.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul.
Okay. Well, I'm afraid we're just flat out of time here. I got a couple of announcements and stuff, and we're going to thank Kyle Dayton of Arizona for being with us today, and we're going to have her back many times. And again, her address, if you want to get in touch with her, Kyle@BehindTheParanormal.com. One of our reporters has a show address. So there we go. Kyle, we'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you, Paul. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Okay, Behind the Paranormal. We want to thank our producer today, Brittany, who's smiling at me. And we'll see you next week, December 26th on Saturday, right here on ON 1240 AM and ONWorldwide.com, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific. Our guest will be none other than author Nadine Lalich, expert on alien abductions, for a deep look behind that upsetting and controversial subject. Tomorrow night on our Sunday show, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific, on CBS Radio and NewSkyRadio.com. We're going to be taking an hour to talk about the weird paranormal connections of Christmas, Hanukkah, and other winter festivals. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up now. We'll see you then, and have a wonderful Christmas and solstice, and we'll talk to you tomorrow night and next week.
Return to this radio frequency 167 hours from now for another edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.